Peace, family. So I'm going to try to make this video not too long, but it might get a little long because it's more of a rant than it is just a real talk. And this is about something that I'm very passionate about, which is education. I want to talk about what I believe that the American education system does to the black child, at least from my own observation. I am an educator myself. This is my first time ever working in public system. I work in a system schools that where majority of the staff are white and majority of the students are black, and it has opened my eyes and it has led me to see things that has happened to me along my own journey without me even realizing that that's what was happening at the time. Before I go too much into details, I must have a disclaimer, because too many times do white people, and sometimes black people, but usually white people, comment on my videos to say things about those outliers who this doesn't pertain to, or how everybody, or the exceptions, everybody doesn't do that, or that's not everybody. Woo, 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 woo. I know this, but just understand that I am generalizing this message so that the idea can be put into the space and so that it can be making sense, rather than complicating things by talking or even investing time in those outliers. You know who you are if you're an outlier, and if you really are an outlier, you're not offended by this message. Okay? Thank you. All right, now as I continue, there are things that I see that happened to me along my journey, because I'm sitting there watching this happen to the kids, and it's psychological damage, it is academic hindrance, and so many different ways. So let me just start with some things that I don't like. I'm just gonna start talking about the things that irritate me that I've been seeing. Number one, how they criminalize black kids. I hate how many times white teachers overreact to what black students do, but when I see them interacting with white students, they don't do the same thing. They'll tell them to sit down, but they'll like kick the black student out the room or something like that. Real life situation. What happened was a little boy, he must have smacked his lips in class. He got sent out the room. He had to call his mom. He got talked to like he was a baby, like that was their child. They tried to like patronize this little boy. And the little boy whole time was just like, man, why am I getting in trouble? Like, for what I do? Because I smacked my lips? Man, that's messed up. Like, I don't think that's fair, you know? And he's crying. He's crying saying this. And I agree with him. And I felt so angry to even be listening to this situation, because they were doing so much over some smacked lips. You could have handled that. Well, anyway. So that's one thing. And if they're not criminalizing our children, then they're not believing in our children. That's another thing that I see, where they believe our children to be a lost cause, or they believe themselves to be super saviors, and that our community is lacking something, and that they're coming to save or to give the community something that they lack. They don't understand or know that the community already has everything that it needs, and we just gotta pull it out of our kids, of ourselves. They don't know this. They believe that they're like that they're doing something, like they're giving and adding something, when in all actuality they're not. So what they believe that we can accomplish on our own, what they believe that these black kids can do, is very little. They don't push them to be the best that they can be. They don't say, look, I know you didn't try on that, you need to do it again. They just allow our kids to just do whatever they're gonna do, which gets them nowhere. They don't have strict structure or strict plans when it comes to them. They be like, oh, well, they gonna act up today? Well, I guess that's what they're gonna do. They don't invest their time, their energy, their passion into our kids. And it's not because they're bad people. It's just because they're not their kids. They're ours. No one is going to care for our children as much as we care for our children. No one is going to make sure that they are the best selves that they can be. No one's going to talk about their character. No one's going to talk about their strength. No one's going to talk about their passions, their life outside of school. No one's going to talk about their culture or embrace all of these things. No one's going to do all of that but us, because they are us. They are ours. They belong to us. That is our future. That's why it's so serious. The reason I became a teacher or educator is because I realize how much impact being a teacher can have over a black child. I realize that being a black teacher is how I can influence black people the most because I'm getting to the youth. And if I'm teaching them about their greatest self, then that means that future generations after this, I don't have to worry about. That's why I'm doing it. But why are they doing it? They do it for a paycheck. They do it because they went to school to learn how to teach. They didn't learn how to teach black kids. They learned how to teach the American way. We are not Americans. We are Africans. We keep learning this Americanized, standardized way. Sit down. Don't do this. Don't do that. And then they wonder why our kids is acting up. Acting up. You mean instead of just sitting still, that's what you really mean. Because what they do is they label us as bad when we don't fit into their system. They label us as less than if we don't want to follow their rules. But we don't realize we can make our own rules. We do have our own rules. When we leave that school system, we do have our own rules. We have our own ways of learning. And I think that it's time for black teachers, black educators to start standing up, man, to start claiming our space, to start collaborating together, to come up with a curriculum that is conducive to our kids and teaching them in the ways that they need to learn. Because these standardized tests is not, we know, a whole America knows that these things aren't beneficial in a long run. But if they want to do that, if Europeans want to continue to send their kids to that school, let them do that. But why would we continue to allow our children to be less than what they are? Why would we continue to allow them to be in a system that does not teach them how to be creators, teach them to be educators, teach them to be just artists, teach them to be employers rather than employees, teach them to be their greatest self, to believe in them, to know that they are the most powerful thing that exists on this earth, and if they want it, they can have it. No one is going to tell them that like how we can tell our children that. No one's going to show them that. They are not going to believe that from anybody that doesn't look like them, who's made it in that same way themselves. Coming from a white person, you got a whole different life than me. You can say I can do it all. You can say you can do it all you want to. But at the end of the day, because I know we lived a different life, I may not believe you. There are a lot of aspects that I'm talking about right now, and I'm jumping all over the place. But I wanted to talk about one more real thing that irritates me that's fucked up when it comes to black educators, is that black educators right now, we are slaves. One of the biggest slaves to the system, and this is probably something that most people won't say, but I will say this. What we do is we contribute to the enslavement of our children every single day by teaching that white history that does not belong to us. We slave for them. We teach false things. We teach things that we don't even believe in. We tell these kids things just so that they can pass these courses and get through the school instead of telling them the real. Instead of telling them that fuck these courses. Telling them fuck what they trying to teach you. This is the real deal. And the reason that we don't say those things is because we feel like we can't. Because, okay, dang, we can't lose our job. We can't do this. Well, that means build your own system. That means that it's that time, man. I'm just over it. You know what really made me start thinking about this was thinking about how Trump being president. Do you know that black teachers, next year, you're going to have to teach about Trump? When social studies comes up, you're going to have to name and acknowledge him and acknowledge his presence as a U.S. American president. And you can't talk bad about him to the entire school. They're not going to allow that. You either have to keep your opinions to yourself or talk about that man like he's good, meaning you are a slave. You are not liberated. You are not free in your ideas, and you cannot even teach your children freely. Within this system, they look at us side-eye like how we teaching our own kids, and them is our kids. You ain't gonna tell me how to raise my kids. You ain't gonna tell me how to teach my kids. Don't have anything to say. You don't know more about my kids than I know. You don't tell me how to do it, but that's what they'll do. They'll, oh my gosh, you can't be doing that here. Well, that's what's needed here. And the reason that we can't do it is because they running the show. Think about all of this. Is that everything would change once we start being more in charge of our own education. Because if we have a future it's going to take more than just people at home. It's going to take more than just the revolutionaries. I can't just trust the revolutionaries of just this time to just homeschool their kids or teach their kids when they get home what it really is. What we need is for the same way that enslavement is instilled in us from the time that we're younger and we don't even realize it, we need to learn us our entire life so that it's instilled in us. All we need is a school system that makes the Kwanzaa principles the principles of the school. Then every African school has Kwanzaa principles as their principles, meaning that children will never not know what Kwanzaa represents. They will never not know what an African or the 7 African principles represents. They will never not know those things. So that's that. And it was one more thing. I hate when it comes around holidays, being a teacher, and they are discussing Thanksgiving or Columbus Day, anything, because it's all lies. We are teaching our children lies. We are teaching them to actually see heroes in the people who terrorized the land, terrorized the people, terrorized us. This is what we're doing. We're celebrating this. We are making it so that a child grows up until they're grown and or whenever to really figure out what everything is, to actually believe this. We are contributing into this. Like, I can no longer. I can't wait all them years that I thought I was going to wait to build an African school system. No, I can't wait. It's needed now. It's needed ASAP. Because all that will take place if we don't get it together now, if black educators and black people with money, and if we don't start to think about how we're going to do that now, because education, I believe, is the most important thing to our uplift. Because if we know nothing of self, if there is no knowledge of self, if there is no knowledge of the world, then there is nothingness. So until we start doing that, everything's just going to be in shambles. And we going to keep creating slaves rather than gods. So that's my rant, my message. It was all over the place. I apologize, but then I can't apologize because I was speaking right off the dome. I have unorganized thoughts, but I am passionate about this, and I didn't even speak in a way that I could have spoke about it, but I really just didn't want to just light up too much. I was trying to keep my cool. But regardless, I know not everyone's going to agree with this, and it's not for everyone. This message is more so for people who are educators. This message is more so for people who are social workers, for sociologists, psychologists, whatever. People who can listen to what I'm saying and find value in it. Whoever can find value, find it. And if you can't, move around, okay? I don't need your negativity on my page. I really don't like to see or read. As much as I will not respond to you, that energy is not needed in my spirit because you don't like something that I said. If I'm not talking to you, don't talk to me. How about that? How about we leave it at that? But at the same time, I already know I can't even stop you from talking to me. You're going to talk to me regardless because I'm that damn bomb. All right, y'all. I'm finna go for real. If there are any things that y'all might want me to talk about, share my perspective on, let me know. Subscribe if you feel like this channel might be something that you might be interested in and you aren't subscribed already. Like it if you like it. Dislike it if you don't like it. But, you know, hey, I said it because it's true, not for you to like it. So, I love you. Peace, love. Black power all day, every day. It ain't no other way. We got to teach our kids the same. You feel me?